All right, Braves fans, let's get rolling. I'm George McNair, and this is State of the Braves. Well, guys, the Braves are coming off of a very successful road trip. They go 5-1, taking 2 out of 3 from the Marlins in Miami, and then took all 3 from Houston in a 3-game sweep these past few days. They're going to move on to play the Rangers next in a pretty interesting matchup as they go against the defending world champions. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, the Braves were really fortunate to get out of Miami, winning 2 games. They had to get some serious heroics from Marcell Ozuna, who this episode is going to be mostly focused on Ozuna and his career resurgence, and it's been pretty amazing to watch over the last, obviously, the start of this season and most of last season. But yeah, they took 2 out of 3 from Miami and then go into Houston, and Houston is playing some really bad baseball right now. I mean, if you watch that series at all, you saw it. The Braves, played well and took care of business, but Houston is not in good shape right now. A lot of that is due to their weakened pitching staff due to injuries. The Braves can commiserate with them on that to an extent, but most of the Astros pitching staff is on the injured list right now. And so, anyways, the Braves have a good road trip. They're going to go match up with the Rangers next. But like I said, most of this episode is going to be focused on really talking about Marcell Ozuna, who has been the offensive star for the Braves. Obviously, with some injuries and some underperformance of some of the Braves stars, I would say, to this point. I will also mention that very thankfully, Ronald Acuna is off the home run schneid. Hit his first home run in the final game in Houston. I know his reaction was pretty funny. Spiked the bat, and basically all of his body language was just like, "Finally, I hit a home run! Yay! I'm so proud of myself." But I'm sure his early season, I wouldn't say struggles, but you know what I mean. Just the guy is the best player in baseball, and so for him to hit his first home run in the 17th game of the season for the Braves is pretty strange. But man, I'm really hoping that he can turn it on in a big way over these next few weeks and get fully back to the Ronald Acuna we know he can be. But guys, let's go ahead and talk about some Braves news first, and then I'll get more into Ozuna. So, the big news of the week, unfortunately, was more injury news. Is Ozzie Albies goes on the injured list with a broken big toe. If you watched the game in Houston, he gets hit by a pitch. He stays in the game, but he was clearly feeling it, just uncomfortable the entire game. Even he had a hit off of Josh Hader, batting righty, hit off of Josh Hader late, line drive up the middle. But even on that swing, he looked uncomfortable. But stayed in the game. After the game, gets an X-ray, and a hairline fracture was seen on that big toe. So we don't really know the timetable on that. The Braves aren't going to release that sort of thing. And maybe they don't even know fully how it is going to heal. I'm going to guess, and it is a total guess, but let's just assume that Ozzie is out 3 to 4 weeks. If that's the case, then it's certainly something the Braves can overcome. It's not like an injury that's going to hamper him for half the season or most of the season. But it does still stink because Ozzie was playing really well, hitting over 310 for the season, showing some real power, near the team lead in RBIs. And so, it just stinks for Ozzie because he had such a good start to the season. And you start seeing the effects of injuries a little bit more when you have both Ozzie Albies and Sean Murphy out of the lineup. It just makes the lineup feel a little shorter. The Braves obviously have such a deep lineup. One guy being out, you almost don't even notice it or feel it. Two of their main guys out, you start feeling a little bit more. The Braves moved Michael Harris the second to the number 2 hole in the lineup. And, so it just makes the back end of the lineup feel not quite as strong. And I will also say that Harris, I love Michael Harris a lot, but I think he feels more comfortable at the back end. Remember, he kind of advocated to stay in the 9 hole most of last season, and he's been in the 6th and 7th hole a lot this year, mostly the 6th hole. and had been hitting really well. So moving up to the 2 hole, is it going to make a huge bit of difference? I don't know. Some guys I think it bothers. Some guys it doesn't bother at all. It seems like Harris is hitting a little lighter over the last few games. I don't know if it has anything to do with being moved up to that 2 hole for the last 2 games, but look, on the surface, Harris seems like a perfect number 2 hitter. Uh, we'll just have to see how he does with Ozzie out. But certainly the Braves offense, while still very strong, is weakened by Ozzie being gone. Um, Luis Guillorme, David Fletcher, those two are going to have to step up. I'll be interested to see who gets more of the starts, if it will be a platoon. Guillorme is the lefty, Fletcher is the righty. I think Fletcher has a little bit more defense, but we'll see. It might just be whoever Snit feels like going to, or who might be playing a little better in the moment. All right, next I want to get into Spencer Strider update. Strider had his surgery just about a week ago, before the Braves got into town in Miami. And I wanted to give you some further thoughts. I mean, there's not a lot of updates in terms of that surgery itself. We know that he's going to be out for the season. It was an internal brace surgery. It wasn't full on Tommy John. So that's a silver lining, that there's some hope that Strider could be ready to go basically by the beginning of next season. But yeah, other than that, there's not any kind of major updates on Strider himself. But I did want to give you some further thoughts on the arm injury epidemic that seems to be sweeping across baseball. There's been a ton of talk about this over the last few weeks. Everybody's giving their opinions. And while I'm certainly not the expert on this sort of thing, I did want to um, let me start over. I heard 2 really good interviews on 2 separate podcasts that I wanted to mention and encourage you guys to listen to. Okay, so the first was Foul Territory's interview with Dr. Meister. This is the guy who actually performed Spencer Strider's surgery, and he gives a lot of interesting thoughts and obviously expert medical thoughts on what's going on with all of these elbow injuries across baseball. And then Ben Verlander's podcast, Flipping Bats, interviewed John Smoltz just a couple days ago. And Smoltz, if you know, and most of you guys are Braves fans, so I'm assuming you've been listening to Smoltz over the years. He has really been harping on this issue before it was obviously suddenly in vogue to talk about, and I give him a lot of credit for that. He's been on the forefront of these issues. People give him a lot of give him a hard time because Smoltz can come across as the old guy in the room, just behind the times and the get off my lawn kind of guy. And he's taking a lot of heat for it, but it just seems like he's turned out to be very right. And so if you take Smoltz's thoughts and Meister's thoughts, you can really boil them down into an agreement that the major issue, right, the major issue in baseball right now with these pitching injuries, um, is that no one's arm can last long if they're throwing max velocity and seeking max spin rates. And with the introduction of analytics to the nth degree in baseball over the last 10 years, you've seen guys chase their max velocity and really find it, right? I mean, they've been able to kind of, I think Smoltz said it this way, they've been able to unlock um, significant velocity beyond what they probably could have found 10 years ago, significantly more spin than what they could have found 10 years ago, right? So you're seeing higher strikeout rates, you're seeing lower ERAs, you're seeing pitchers pitch to their max potential, and yet they can't hold out, right? It's like you're sacrificing all of your um, longevity for short-term dominance. And so, yeah, we're seeing a lot of short-term dominance, and I think Braves fans can connect that certainly to Strider. But Strider's not the only guy. I mean, it's across baseball. Strider's just maybe the most dominant of the guys that we've seen go down recently, or one of the most dominant at least. So, look, this industry has encouraged the use of analytics and unlocking this maximum performance, but it certainly doesn't seem to be valuing or trying to protect pitchers' health. Um, Smoltz makes a good point. Growing up as a Braves fan, as I know a lot of you guys did, especially if you're as old as I am, and you were able to watch Smoltz and Glavine and Maddox, you can connect to this thought. But he makes the point that in his day, pitchers were developed for longevity and reliability. To be out there every fifth day, and yeah, hopefully win your team the game, but be there and be there that every fifth day. And today, again, it seems more like it's about when you're out there dominate, and if you get hurt, we'll put you on the shelf, we'll give you a surgery, we'll get you back in a year, and you'll do it again. And if you need another surgery after that, we'll get you another one. And if you kind of get used up, then we'll throw you away and we'll get somebody new. And that doesn't sit right with me. And I don't like that part of sports in general, where players are treated more as commodities than as people. And definitely think we're seeing that in baseball right now with pitchers. So yeah, I give Smoltz a lot of credit because he has been talking about this issue way before anybody else really wanted to admit that it was an issue. Um, and now maybe people are starting to listen a little bit more. There's something I will just say about um, this is just a point I kind of wanted to make, and you can roll your eyes at me if you want to, guys. But I think as a society, I'm going to make this larger point. As a society, I think we're less and less willing to listen to older people and their wisdom, and I don't know what that's about. But I've seen it a lot across baseball, where it's just like you don't want, and the joke is made a lot of the old guy, the get off my lawn guy. Joe Simpson is one of those for the Braves that I think takes a lot of heat for this. But these guys have years and years and years of baseball experience, and it's like with the new analytics and the new way of doing things, we just want to throw these guys out and say you don't know what you're talking about, and we do. And I think with analytics, just because we have more information doesn't mean we have greater wisdom about the game and how to play the game the right way. And I do think, I hope at least, there's going to be a pendulum swing back to maybe something in the middle where we're using the analytics in smart ways, but we're also protecting guys' health. And we get to a point where pitchers can consistently go deeper in games and also be healthier across the board. And maybe we see less 100 mile per hours on the radar gun. Maybe we get to a point where it's more like 95, and pitchers are not maxing out, and maybe ERAs go up a little bit, but maybe they stay in the game more, and you have more consistency across the board and healthier guys on the mound. But yeah, guys, I really encourage you to. It's not a long interview, but especially Smoltz's interview with Ben Verlander, I would encourage you to go out and listen to that. And Meister's interview on foul territory, I think both are really worth your time. And there's a lot of other guys out there talking about the issues, but I think these guys are really thoughtful and kind of on the forefront of this whole issue. All right, so another thing I just want to mention before I get to Ozuna and the primary part of this episode is Ronaldo Lopez, guys. His early dominance has been super important. He pitched another gem against Houston the other night. And of course, as Strider went down, I talked about it. Both he and Chris Sale were going to be super important. Sale has been solid so far. No problems with how Sale is pitching, certainly. But Reynaldo Lopez has been honestly one of the most dominant starting pitchers in baseball over these first couple weeks of the season. He has 3 straight starts of 6 innings pitched. He's only allowed 1 earned run total in those 18 innings. Um, he's coming from the bullpen, remember, and I remember listening to multiple national podcasts when the Braves kind of announced they were going to try this with Lopez. I listened to a couple national podcasts, and they were basically just laughing at the idea, dismissing it outright. That number one, that the Braves would even try to do this, but that Lopez could do it. He has a career 4 something ERA as a starter. Um, but he's also got a lot more experience under his belt as a relief pitcher since then. And it looks like right now Anthopoulos is the one laughing. I mean, he looks like a genius. And, the Braves and obviously their development and their analytics and all that is is really playing out that Renato Lopez is a really good pitcher, and it's got to be super encouraging. It is to me that he's been this good this early. Doesn't mean he's going to be dominant all the way through the season. No. And a big question mark is, will his arm hold up long term? Pitching a lot more innings this year than he has over the last few years. But early in his career as a starter, he was pretty much a workhorse and could do it. So I'm encouraged a lot, guys, that the Braves were able to get Lopez for 3 years, $30 million. It is a bargain steal if he ends up being a really good starting pitcher for him. So yeah, guys, I already mentioned the Braves are coming off a 3-game sweep of the Astros. Ozuna, especially with that 2-out ninth inning home run to basically win it for the Braves in Game 1 of the series, was just super awesome. Or sorry, not Houston. This was the last game of the Marlins series before Houston, and man, what an awesome way to win that series. Marlins had been playing really bad, and it really swung the series. Obviously, the end for the Braves. So let's talk about Marcell Ozuna and his torrid start to the season. We're getting to a point now that we can no longer ignore the miraculous nature of Marcell Ozuna's career resurgence. And we've seen it basically all with the Braves. As you guys may remember, I called for Ozuna to be released or traded by the Braves multiple times. Actually, I think 3 total times since he's been a Brave. I have wanted the Braves to get rid of Marcell Ozuna. So, um, I was on that train. I have to admit it. Um, and we know that it wasn't always just because of his play. His play didn't help matters in terms of ingratiating himself to Braves fans. But, he had that domestic violence arrest in 2021. He had the DUI in 2022, and then his horrendous start in 2023 in April. And you got to give him credit. I mean, he has seriously revived his career in a most surprising way. If you had said of May 1st of 2023 that Ozuna was going to do what he's done since then, no one would have believed you. Even the most crazed uh, fan who just was hoping beyond hope that he would not have expected this. So let's do a quick review of Ozuna's career so that we can put in perspective what he has done. He has had a notably odd up and down career, really from the start. And he looks like a totally different player now than he did when he debuted in Miami. If you didn't see young Marcell Ozuna, he was a thinner version of himself. He was a speedier version of himself. He debuted at 22 years old, and believe it or not, right now he's a full-time DH, but back then he was actually a center fielder with some pop and some speed. And even by the time he gets to Atlanta at the age of 29, Ozuna was basically, he played left field some for the Braves early on, but he was basically on his way to being a full-time DH by the age of 29 or 30 years old. Obviously not the speediest guy anymore. He'd had shoulder surgery and zapped totally his arm. He's got no throwing arm at all anymore. So just physically kind of a shell of himself by the age of 30. I remember thinking the guy was 35 years old when he was only about 30. And so I think that's another thing. Just visually, it seemed like Ozuna was basically done, like he was declining, and yet he's been able to have this resurgence. But his pre-Braves career, all right, 2013 through 2017, he was with the Marlins. He had a decent half season as a rookie. And then he had a pretty promising sophomore season. He hit 23 home runs, had a 455 slugging percentage, which is solid, not spectacular, but as a no sophomore slump or anything like that. His third season in Miami was a big downturn. Slumped majorly, hit only 10 home runs and basically a full season. Had a sub 400 slugging percentage. And then his fourth season, he rebounded some, kind of got back to his sophomore season totals. And then his fifth season, he had a career year. So it was in his fifth season. He hit 37 home runs, 124 RBIs, somehow won a Gold Glove. I still don't know exactly how that happened, but won a Silver Slugger, was an All-Star, got some MVP down ballot votes, was 15th in the MVP race that year. And it was after that season that the Marlins basically tore down. That's the season. Remember, they traded away Christian Yelich, they traded away Giancarlo Stanton, and they traded away Marcell. And so he goes on to spend 2 seasons with the Cardinals in 2018 and 2019. 2018 was a major step down for him. 23 home runs and only a 433 slugging percentage. This is when his shoulder was becoming a real issue. So that shoulder injury might have hampered him that season. Um, he had off-season shoulder surgery. 2019, he had somewhat of an improvement. 29 home runs, a 472 slugging percentage. So pretty decent that year. And then, of course, he hits free agency and moves on to the Braves. So in 2020, of course, he has this awesome season, but as we all know, 2020 was the shortened season. So it's only 60 games. So you wonder, is this real? Was he just hot during those 60 games? But he led the National League in home runs at 18 and RBIs at 56 in those 60 games. All right, then move on to 2021 and 2022, and they were abysmal for him. Not only on the field, but off the field as well, right? He had terrible on the field performance. He has a season-ending hand injury in 2021. Then he's, of course, has these legal troubles soon after that. Domestic violence arrest. The charges were later dropped. But then 2022, he comes back. Really bad year. This is the year he also has the DUI arrest. And in those 2 seasons combined, Ozuna had a 222 batting average, a sub 400 slugging percentage at 397, and a total WAR of negative 0.7. So he's honestly one of the worst players in baseball over those 2 seasons. And then you also have to include the early part of 2023 in that, right? Basically, he's performing like the worst player in baseball, guys, at that point. And so then we all know the story of 2023. And I don't think to this day anyone knows for sure the full story of what caused the turnaround. I know he made some swing adjustments, and there are some stories about him using kind of like a curveball pitching machine to start hitting off-speed pitches better and staying on the ball. But man, I mean, whatever it was, there were plenty of rumors around that the Braves were this close to to tossing him, right? To just dropping him and all of those millions of dollars they still owed him. I mean, you could make every case. He had the off the field issues. At this point, May 1st of 2023, he's hitting below 100 with only 2 home runs and 2 RBIs in a full month of baseball. And then, as we all know, May 1st, they get to Miami and he starts turning everything around. He hits a grand slam and doesn't look back and somehow finishes 2023 with 40 home runs and 100 RBIs. So since May 1st of last year, Marcell Ozuna has hit 46 home runs and has compiled a total of 121 RBIs. And all of that is basically under 6 calendar months. So it's a little less than a full season. And I mean, you look at those numbers and it's just remarkable. So, Marcell's career resurgence really isn't something I totally understand. It is a reminder in baseball that guys can lose it pretty quickly, and sometimes they never find it again, but sometimes they do. And the smallest thing can bring them back. And Marcell, I don't know if it was maybe off the field issues got better. I'm not going to speak to that because obviously I don't know any of that. But something changed for the better. And of course, the Braves have certainly um, been helped out a lot by that. I look back at, why the Braves were so patient with Marcell. Sure, it had a lot to do with the money they owed him. But we've also learned since then that Marcell is beloved in the clubhouse. He's respected by his teammates. He's a super nice guy. He gets along with everybody. He's helped guys out with their swing, and the story of Michael Harris and um, his struggles early last year and him helping them out. There's just been a lot of different stories like that. And that is a good lesson for us to all recognize that when we're nice and kind and good teammates or good coworkers or however you want to fill in the blanks there, you get a lot more leeway and a lot more grace comes your way. I mean, if Ozuna had been a jerk, like if he'd been the Barry Bonds type of player in the clubhouse and struggled like he did, he would have been gone a long time ago. But very thankfully, at least as far as on the field performance goes, very thankfully the Braves were patient with him, and it has served them incredibly well. You can imagine. I mean, the Braves would not be 12-5 right now if they didn't have Marcell Ozuna hitting in the 5 hole. So certainly, again, I many times wanted the Braves to drop Ozuna. I still have some mixed feelings about him being on the team. I got to mention that, right? It's not like I've just fully embraced the guy. He's never going to be my favorite Brave, and it's always he's always going to carry uh, some of his actions off the field. He's always going to have to carry that. That's part of you know the consequences of those things. But as far as on the field, man, I'm just so impressed with how he was able to turn around his career. And, maybe the Braves will bring him back. I mean, there's been so much assumed that this would be Marcell's final year. But the way he's hitting, who knows? Maybe they extend him for multiple years and bring him back because he's a big part of this lineup right now. So, guys, the Braves are off Thursday. That's when I'm bringing this to you. They're going to go back and play the Rangers next, and hopefully Acuna is going to get hot here, and Ozuna is going to stay hot, and Riley's been a little not, I would say, not quite himself too. I'd love to see him get going as well. So it's just funny. The Braves are 12-5. They have Ozzie injured. They have Murphy injured. Of course, Strider, and it just feels like they still haven't played to their capabilities. And that speaks to how awesome this team really is and can be if they really start going in the right direction with some of their um, superstars. So, all right, guys. Well, fun episode. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.